Hi, my name is Chris Lethem, and this is The Economy and You. Welcome. This looks like we're at the last day of the year, and I think we're going to have a really interesting show. We have our newest member of the House of Representatives from the Republican Party, Andria Tupola, is here. Hi, Andrea.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yes, thank you for being here. Today we're going to talk about some of these sort of interesting issues related to the upcoming session, a lot of the challenges that we face here in Hawaii, because this show is about the economy. It's also about what we can be doing to strengthen our economy and grow new opportunities for our children and our families here in Hawaii. We've got a lot of challenging issues. So, Andrea, why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about why you decided to run for office and how the campaign went for you.
Okay. Well, I decided to run in about 2012, to be honest. It took me a little bit to really mentally prepare for something like running for office. For me, I was a music teacher, and I had to contemplate leaving my career in order to do this. And so I definitely talked it over with my family. A lot of it was spurred from the 2012 presidential election, because I saw a lot of national policies that were starting to bleed into our state policies that I felt like wouldn't be good for our families and for the state of Hawaii. I did live out of the country in Venezuela, and so a lot of what I saw outside of the U.S. was what I was seeing being implemented in here, and I know from my perspective of living in Venezuela that those policies weren't going to be good. Now, some of these policies are what people might consider socialism, but in Venezuela they had the same president for about 30 years, Hugo Chavez, and he just recently passed away within the last 5 years. But a lot of things that he was implementing was enabling, giving free housing, free medical, free education to the lowest class, and that's consistently how he got reelected.
Well, so it was basically he had a giveaway type of administration.
Right. And at first, when I lived in Venezuela, I thought that it was good. I thought, hey, this isn't bad. Everybody has a house, there's not a lot of people on the street. But then when I lived there longer, I realized that there was no sense of work. There was no one that really wanted to try hard, because the harder you tried, the more the government pulled you down.
Well, and also, there also has to be a concept, I think, of doing a good job, of doing good work and excellence.
Right.
And if you live in an economy where people don't have a sense of excellence or a sense of pride in the quality of the work that they do, ultimately, it loses its foundation.
It was so evident when I lived there, because the atmosphere, the streets, the buildings, they were unkept, they were dirty. And at first I thought, wow, I wonder if they just don't have people to clean it up. But what you're saying is why it happened. Nobody takes any pride in where they live or what it looks like, because it's free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen the same kind of thing on the American Indian reservations. I have personally been out on some of the reservations, and you go out there, and of course these people get a monthly welfare check while they live out there on the reservation. And there is, of course, sort of an impact to that, and unintended consequences of not having to show up every day and be accountable and work hard, and you just learn to sort of live that laid-back lifestyle. Now, Hawaii is, of course, we've enjoyed a laid-back lifestyle for a very long time.
Yes.
And it's part of our culture, but also I think one of the things about Hawaii that makes it unique is that we do also have a standard of excellence and a belief that there is reward for doing hard work and doing good work.
Yeah.
And so I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. So you decided then you were just going to get involved in politics, but your family's kind of been in politics a little bit, haven't they?
A little bit. My father is a family court judge, but I didn't go to law school. When I was in college, I did contemplate it. I do have a passion for justice, and I do speak well, and I love researching. And so I posed the question, should I go to law school, or should I be a music teacher? My mom's a music teacher. And so I personally felt like it was going to be better for me to be a music teacher. I'm very skilled, I guess, in that art as well, and so I decided to pursue that. And then after I finished my bachelor's, I got a master's in music, and I just thought I was well down the path of being a musician, being a professor. I worked at Leeward Community College, and I, for the first time, taught at the college level, and I'm finishing my PhD, and I just wanted to help. I never thought that I'd take this huge turn in my life, but the more I got involved, the more people were like, we need good people to run. And I was like, well, where are they at? Like, I'm going to help them. They're like, no, you should run. I'm like, no.
Not me.
There's got to be someone else to run.
That's right.
And you look high and low in Hawaii, and I don't know if people are just uninterested in running as much as maybe unprepared to really like jump into the political scene, or there's probably a lot of reasons why people don't want to run for office. But at my age, owning a house, having children, it started to become very important for me to get involved in community affairs.
And you know, I think what happens is people at some point start to realize that you can't rely on somebody else to be the person that solves the problems that exist within our society.
Right.
It really takes stepping up and being that person who says, okay, somebody's got to lead, and if it needs to be me, it's going to be me. And I guess it falls to me, then so be it. And I really commend you for that, by the way. I really do. It's a lot of work running a campaign. You know, when you're in office, and I'm sure you're starting to realize this already, you know, the hours aren't 9 to 5.
Yeah.
This is really a calling. I feel anyway that it's really a calling. So thank you for stepping up and being part of the solution. And so now that you've gotten elected, you have an official title now or a position at the legislature?
Yeah, I am going to be in leadership, and we're working out the positions right now. So I am looking forward to propelling the party forward.
Okay.
And rallying around the cause. You know, obviously this was a huge election for Republicans. It didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, but I think there was a lot of reasons for that. And I think every loss, there can be a gain.
Well, you know, one of the things that you do is you learn what not to do.
Exactly.
And there is value in learning what not to do.
Right, I agree.
So, you know, when you're running a campaign like this, so the question is, what are some of the key lessons that you learned along the way?
In the campaign?
You know, as running your campaign, what were some of the key things that you learned while running for office?
I think one of the things that I always appreciated was learning how to really step out of my comfort zone. Now, I'm a huge person that believes in stepping out of your comfort zone. You can ask any student that I've ever taught. I hone in on the fact that you can only grow when you're uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so I firsthand had to experience that for I don't know how long. It felt like I ran for 2 years because that's how long it took me to prepare the campaign.
Wow.
And I just felt like it was uncomfortable the whole time. And I think that people see me and they see that I'm confident, that I speak well, so they're like, she must love it. But they had no idea like how uncomfortable it was for me to step into this realm of things that I didn't really fully understand. I wanted to help. I wanted the community to get better. Do I know all the solutions? No.
Yes.
Am I the regular person? Yes.
Yes.
And so I felt like for me, having to constantly be confident in something that I wasn't totally understanding was a huge step out of my comfort zone. I know music. I can live in that world. I can dominate it. To step out of that world and say, I'm going to start helping in a world that I don't understand, that was huge.
Well, the learning curve is completely vertical, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, yeah. And there's really nobody there to hold your hand. I mean, a few people might give you pointers, but no one's going to walk you through that.
Well, no, and you sort of have to formulate your own opinions as you go, because as you're acquiring new knowledge and new understanding about different topics, and you're kind of like, well, you want to express an opinion at times, but you know, you may not feel that you necessarily are an expert enough on any particular topic,
right,
to have a sort of a solution set,
right,
ready to go. So with that, you know, we've had some interesting challenges with the Republican Party. You know, I ran for the state senate in Kaka'ako, Waikiki area, and I felt like the Republican Party had lost some of its momentum and some of its structure, and I kind of felt like when I came in that there was going to be more sort of infrastructure ready for me as a candidate.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit, I was taken aback a little bit by that. So one of the things that I'm thinking about now going forward is how do we make sure that the next time that we have an election, that we've got an infrastructure that we can hand over to our candidates,
right,
that gives them the sense of confidence that they're not out there, you know, running on their own, just on their own. That,
right,
that there's actually an underlying support structure that gives them the confidence to go out there and run as a Republican candidate. So do you have any suggestions or ideas, some of the things that we might be able to do?
I think for me, we might have differed on that opinion, only because I don't understand politics, so I didn't expect anything from them. Only because I didn't understand what a party was. You know, I knew that my values aligned with Republicans, but I didn't necessarily understand how a party was supposed to support me. And so whenever I do things, I always try to understand all the parts.
Yes.
You know, not have someone else do part of it for me, just so that I can comprehend, okay, what is every moving part in what I'm trying to do. And so in that aspect, I felt like in the very end, I wasn't going to blame anyone because I knew I ran the whole thing. And I think for what you're saying, a lot of other candidates expected more, which, you know, at the end, I didn't know that. You know, when I met with them, I was like, did you think that they were going to make the list for you? And they were like, yes, you know, and I was like, oh, well,
Okay.
and I, you know, for me, I guess coming from a unknowledgeable point of view, it helped. Because I knew that I had to learn everything on my own. But going forward, I think that the suggestions that I would have would be similar to what you said, preparing maybe a package of basic information. I mean, I went over and talked to the party after the election. I said, how about just a sheet explaining how to open a bank account?
Yeah, let's stop there for a minute. That's really great insight, and I love what you're talking about. And I want to talk about it a little bit more. Right now, we're going to go to commercial. This is Chris Lethem, and this is The Economy and You. Thank you, and stay tuned for more. Thank you.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevelin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at Think Tech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday. Aloha.
Hi, this is Chris Lethem. Welcome back. This is The Economy and You. Our guest today is Andria Tupola, the new member of the House of Representatives. And we're talking about, when we left off, we were talking about where we are with the party and maybe the concept of putting together some kind of a packet that gives new candidates some sort of sense of what they need to be doing. I know for me personally, the first couple of months that I was running, I just was like trying to get a website up and, you know, where do I get my list, and, you know, looking at the data list and trying to understand what information I could glean from it. And then, you know, what was the process of running, and how do I go about raising money and raising funds? I had never raised funds for a campaign before.
Yeah, me neither.
That's a very challenging thing.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's so much that you need to know, and then who do you reach out to, and who are the people that, you know, they say, well, go talk to your friends, go talk to your family. Well, me personally, my friends and family, you know, they don't have that kind of money. You know?
That's everyone in Hawaii. Yeah.
That's everybody. So, you know, that made it rather challenging for me, and I also, there was sort of getting over that discomfort of asking for money.
Right. No one goes, you know, talks to you about the discomfort that you're going to feel,
Yes.
or like maybe the confidence barriers that you're going to have to get over, or maybe just the way that you're going to have to speak about yourself. You know, I actually had a coach help me through the campaign, and he actually told me, he said, when you speak, you're just not confident, even when you're asking for money. And I'm a pretty confident person, and I was like, I'm not? He's like, yeah, like even in the way that you pitch your own self, he's like, you gotta believe that this is what you need to do. And, you know, this was months before the election, and I was like, I had no idea that that's what I was exuding. Like this, I'm not sure, maybe please help me with $5,000, you know, whatever it was, And so, to be honest, what you're saying is a huge component of it, is the coaching aspect. Okay, because we can talk finance, we can talk a data package of how you track the data of getting to know your constituents, and then you can talk about your media package, but nobody talks about the coaching package, like the how do you get through the downs and ups and still believe in yourself and still hoorah your team on.
That's right, that's right. And you know, one of the things that sort of took me a little while was figuring out, who do I want on my team?
Right.
How do I build a good team, and am I going to have people on my team that are capable? Because initially I had a relative who I really appreciated coming over to help me, but she didn't have anything to offer in terms of a skill set, except to sort of like pat me on the back and, you know, wish me good luck, which is great. I always appreciate people who are, you know, pat me on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but it's also, you need people who knew how to do the media campaign stuff and how to put together a speech and help you write your speeches and things like that, because these are all very important components when you go out to talk to the public, that they need to feel confident that you know what you're talking about.
Right.
You know, and then there's this sort of education process, because then it's like, well, okay, what are all the different issues in the community that we need to contend with? You know, it isn't always about having the solution as well. It's also about just understanding the problem.
Right.
We take a lot of time to listen to people communicate with us about the problems that they're going on, and there are different points of view about a problem, and how we're going to work on solving it. And then, you know, winning people over. You know, one of the challenges running as a Republican is there are a lot of people that vote down the party line.
Right.
So you've got to get people to believe in you as a candidate, as a person, and instead of just going check, 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 check right down the party ticket, they got to go, oh, I know this person, I believe in this person, I'm coming over to the other side, and I'm going to check this person off. This is a person I want representing me.
Yeah.
So that's one of the unique challenges of running as a Republican candidate.
Yeah. I think running as a Republican candidate for anyone in Hawaii is you can't even be neck and neck with someone, as you saw in Charles DeJue's case, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a Republican, if you're neck and neck with someone, you're losing. And so you have to come out of the gates flying. You got to be going full blast all day, which for us, not knowing how to run a campaign, how do you sprint when you feel like you're in the dark, you know? So I'm sprinting in the dark because I'm a Republican, I'm the underdog. And so I felt like throughout the campaign that was a huge learning lesson for me.
Yeah, it is kind of like running in the dark, isn't it? Because you just don't know what's in front of you until it just jumps up and hits you in the face. Yep. So that's a uniquely difficult challenge. So let's talk a little bit about where we're going to go forward from here. You know, we've got the new session starting up shortly. The Republican Party is now sort of getting itself together and trying to figure out who's going to sit on what committees and who's going to be in leadership. And congratulations for your floor leadership position. That comes with additional responsibilities.
Yeah.
And as a freshman, taking on something like that is also going to be quite challenging, I would imagine.
Oh, yes, yes.
Because now not only do you have to know your role, but you have to have this leadership role and take on all the additional responsibilities and functionality related to that as well.
Right.
So do we see how some of the other people are, or people like Bob McDermott or Gene Ward, or where what positions they want to take on?
For committees?
Yes, for committees and or other leadership positions.
I think a lot of people wanted to maintain their current committee positions. You know, me being someone new and not really having a huge desire to go in a specific way. I was an educator, so I love to be in education. Yes. I'm from the West Side. I think agriculture, transportation, public safety are huge issues. So for each of us, it was kind of understanding what district you're from and what needs your district has, right? Because you want to represent them.
That's right.
And so coming into a small caucus, you actually can have free reign, right? We have all these seats. In fact, we have so many committee seats we can't even fill them all because we only have 7 people. So we have 2 seats on on various sections. And so I'm hoping in the future when we do have to actually bargain for committee positions that it'll come out that way where you can put the best person in that committee. And so, yeah, Bob is probably going to maintain his position on judicial, and I believe Gene will maintain his position on finance. And that's been really helpful for us to have them there with the experience that they have, and Cynthia's been on judiciary this whole time.
Well, they're all very strong advocates for the constituents.
They are.
They all are. So I look to see a very interesting session coming up this year. And we've got some unique challenges, and I kind of wanted to touch on some of the issues that we have to address this legislative session. One of the biggest issues for Honolulu has been homelessness.
Oh, yeah.
And we've looked at the homeless problem from different perspectives. There's the discussion about, well, these are people that have drug problems or mental problems, or there are those people that are just down on their luck. And then how do you quantify those? And then based on that, what do we want to do with those people? Now, we've been talking about building micro-housing units, and you've heard the discussion on micro-housing, where we're going to build itty-bitty little tiny apartments that are really sort of economy units. And that's all great, but even that takes time. That may take a year, 2 years down the road before those are actually built. So one of the things is, what do we do in the interim? Right. And are we building enough of those? I think we've got a visual on some of the housing development. I think there's a chart that I brought today that talks about some of the construction that's going on. And if we take a look here, we can see that what we have here is in the green is units I believe that are being proposed or required. No, that's what's required. I'm sorry. What's in the green is what's required. Red is what we're actually building. So as you can see, we're not meeting the demand for affordable housing. Now, we've been building a lot of housing. Unfortunately, it hasn't been the housing that meets the needs of the people who live in the community. And so I think one of the challenges that we need to look at is, how do we go forward in building the kind of units, and what kind of solutions can we come up with in the short term?
Right.
There's been some discussion about this, but have you had any discussions with your colleagues on this issue?
In regards to housing, homelessness, no, we haven't, obviously with a lot of leadership issues going on. But I feel like one of the Republican values that we have that has kind of helped our economy and the country is trying to come up with solutions that make us less dependent on the government, right?
Yes.
Because in the end, it's going to create more of a financial burden. So anything that we propose in any huge proportion, unless we take from here and put there, is going to continue to tax and burden the citizens of Hawaii. So
you know, one of the issues of federal housing here in Hawaii is that, you know, there is no timeline. When people get into this low-income housing, there is no, say, you're in for 5 years. You're in.
right.
Okay, so what that means, though, is that there's no flow-through. So because, you know, in my mind, you know, this affordable housing was meant to give people a leg up,
Right.
Give them a chance to get on their feet.
Yeah.
And build themselves up so that they can live on their own and not be dependent upon the state or the federal government.
Right.
Unfortunately, because of the way federal laws are mandated, people move into this federal low-income housing that's been funded by federal government, even though it's here. So there is no mobility or movement, and there's very long waiting lists.
Right.
So the question is, can we figure out a way that we build housing that is designed to give people an opportunity to help themselves, but not create a long-term dependency.
Right, and that's the exact policy that we're against, right? Is being dependent on some entity, whether it's the government or whoever, because in an essence, then that person isn't wanting to give back. They just want to take, right?
Yes.
And so I think that what you're talking about is trying to come up with as many free solutions as possible. Now, when I say free, I mean fixing the procedures.
Yes.
So is there a way we can fix the procedures? Is there a way we can fix the process? Is there a way we can limit X or Y so that we can move all these pieces? Now, in my community, I've tried to look for those everywhere. Mm-hmm. How many solutions can we propose, whether from private entities or from changing rules or, you know, changing procedures in order to get the solutions that we need?
So what you're really talking about is changing the regulatory environment in which we do business. You know, Hawaii has a reputation as being one of the least friendly small business states in the nation.
Right.
We're also one of the most expensive places to live, and but we don't have the income to support it.
Right.
So it's sort of like, you know, well, San Francisco is expensive, but the pay is good. Mm-hmm. You live in Hawaii, it's expensive, but the pay's not so great.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a double whammy.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've been looking at, of course, this last year was the housing problem. But we also talk about the other part of that solution is, you know, what can we be doing to create more jobs? You know, we raise our children for export here in Hawaii. It is no doubt one of the biggest challenges for most of the families that live here is, are there going to be jobs for our children to come home to? Too often, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Or it's, I've got to take and work in an underemployed situation because I can't find work where I just spent $250,000 going to college and getting an education for it.
Right.
So, you know, can we be doing more to build out our economy, removing regulatory structures that impede growth in our economy?
Right.
Can we be doing more to improve new opportunities, say, by making the right kind of investments? You know, one of the things that we haven't done for nearly 20 years is brought in more fiber optic cable into Hawaii. So if we bring in more fiber optic cable and increase bandwidth, you know, places like Kansas City, Singapore, where they have done this, the economy, this has spurred incredible growth in their economy. So my question is, why aren't we doing that in Hawaii?
Let me take your question back 2 steps.
Okay.
And I'm going to take it back 2 because I think I understand the steps that come before it. One is that as legislators, we're not experts on everything. And that needs to be first and foremost, is that if we are going to come up with solutions, we need to be meeting with people who are experts in those fields.
Yes.
And pretending to know everything about every business or niche of knowledge is impossible.
Yes.
And the step behind that is that possibly some of these solutions are going to come from people outside the legislature, right? And that maybe some of the laws that we're making need to be read through better. Maybe lawyers need to be taking a better look at,
yes,
if this law is made, then how is it going to affect it downstream? So
you're talking about the unintended consequences,
right,
or the purposeful
right.
intent of the law.
So we're writing laws,
yes,
and then we're not asking experts, and then something happens. Like, let's take it back. Let's go back to experts. I mean, how often do we meet with unions? How often do we meet with, you know, the head businessman a lot of the guys don't even know. They don't read Business Magazine Hawaii.
That's right.
And so I think that could really change the game.
I think when you bring in, one of the things that General Motors did actually a long time ago was when they decided to build the Pacer. Do you remember the Pacer automobile?
Yeah.
Well, what they did is they polled their employees about what kind of a car they should build. They didn't poll the public, they polled the employees. And so that's how we got the Pacer.
And it was ingenious, right? Because these guys work with the cars all day.
Well, they work with the cars all day, but the challenge was that the Pacer turned out not to be a great selling automobile only because it wasn't necessarily what the public wanted, and there was, from the perspective of the people who worked on the cars, was they wanted to maintain their job. So they didn't want to build a small car, they wanted to build a big car. So it was this sort of strange mesh of consumer demand what the people in the factory wanted to build. Yeah. So maybe one of the things that we need to be doing too is making sure that we're asking the right people.
Right.
You know, when we talk about building for future economic growth, if we're only pulling the people who maintain the benefits of the status quo, you're not necessarily going to get the best answers.
Right.
You know, one of the things that we looked at the legislature last year was what can we be doing to reduce legal structures or impedances to progress. Can we create statutory language that provides opportunity for innovation?
Yeah.
HECO is probably a prime example of this, where we have one entity that provides basically the power for
a
Hawaii.
monopoly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to use the word, but yeah, you said it, right? A monopoly. So can we be doing more? Can we be creating language in the law or removing language, unnecessary language, and or building structure in the language of the law that assures that if you're going to make an investment, that we're going to make sure that you have the appropriate licenses with the appropriate duration so that you have a chance to get a return back on your investment. One of the things that had to do with was what we call concession language. So if you're a business that does business with the state, you're considered a concession. Well, that language is all over the place. You can invest millions of dollars and end up with a month-to-month contract, which, of course, that means the state could revoke it at any time.
Right.
So that's a problem.
Well, and I think it's all over. I mean, maybe with HECO, maybe tomorrow it's with the airport, maybe it's the DOT procedures. And I think something important that you just said was we need people who want to do that.
Yes.
We need people who want to change that language, to take off the burdens, to increase business, you know, all of those things. And
so basically people who are really interested in getting up, rolling up their sleeves, jumping in with both hands and really taking a hard look at this and see if we can make change.
Right, and not change to benefit me,
yes.
Change to benefit everyone else.
That's right. And with that, this has really turned out to be a great conversation. I thank you very much, Andrea. So we're going to go to commercial. This is Chris Lethem in The Economy and You, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the Think Tech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to Think Tech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the Think Tech Hawaii broadcast network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Hello, welcome back. This is Chris Lethem with The Economy and You. Today's guest is Andria Tupola, new member of the House of Representatives. I always have a hard time saying new legislator, Andria Tupola. Yes,
no, you don't need to say it. Public servant.
Public servant, yeah. I always like the term public servant. You know, I was asked this last election during the campaign, do you consider yourself a politician or a public servant? I said, hands down, I'm a public servant.
Yeah.
That's really the function of being somebody at the legislature. So do you have any kind of, now that you're elected, do you have any specific areas of interest that you want to delve into?
I think for my community, public safety is a huge issue. Transportation is a huge issue. I live on the side of the island where there's only one road in and one road out. There's no way around the island in Waianae. And so a lot of the community members from day one were, how are you going to fix traffic? Which, of course, as a new legislator, you're like, ah!
Well, you know, there was a proposal. I think former Representative Cabanillas had a proposal to do a, you know, we have the contraflow lane that brings us into town, to have a contraflow lane that would take us back out of town.
Yeah, and so the contraflow lane, I think if you're talking about the freeway, it actually was supposed to be longer. The zipper lane was supposed to be longer, and so that kind of got cut short. So that could be a solution. And where I live is much way past Kapolei. But I think for me, I tried to find a solution that was immediate, you know, because my community doesn't want to see in 5 years what I'm going to do on it.
That's right.
They want to know what I'm going to do tomorrow about it. And so I created a Facebook group. It's free. So a Facebook group to update them on what's going on with DOT so that they know what's going on with accidents, with traffic.
Okay.
And
That's
so
a good idea.
Currently, we're not part of the traffic management system for city and county.
Oh.
So currently, no traffic reports come out of Waianae. And so for me to create this Facebook page where people could actually report accidents, and Danielle Tucker jumped in on it, all the reporting guys jumped in on the Facebook group, and now they ask questions. Hey, we heard there's an accident. Can someone in Waianae tell us what's going on? And now 3,000 people are in this group. And now we're all communicating about traffic.
So that also sounds like a really great way to do a Twitter feed.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yes, because then everybody, you can get that Twitter feed real time.
Right.
Pops up on your phone.
It didn't cost me money.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I didn't have to pass legislation to
How
get a
awesome
Facebook
is that?
group.
Well,
Yeah.
so you're already doing great things.
Trying.
Yeah. So that's now, you know, there's been talk about bringing back the super ferry or having people ferried back and forth.
Right.
We tried that at one time. I guess there was some problems with that being cost effective.
I think the whole problem with the super ferry was the groups that were, I guess, quote unquote, offended, or, you know, conservationists, the Sierra Club, other things. The question then has to be the lawyer that was in on this, if they were actually defending it and comparing it to the amount of barges that come through. I mean, let's be honest, there are ships much bigger than the super ferry. And so for them to say that the super ferry was killing the dolphins or the other things, we know that Matson has trucks bigger, you know, boats bigger than that.
Yes.
But again, it came down to the lawsuit.
So, you know, that was sort of a black eye for us in terms of attracting offshore dollars.
Right.
Because now, you know, Hawaii has a reputation as being this very unfriendly place to do business or to make investments.
Right. Those guys backed off that came in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, that kind of thing happens, it has long-term consequences. Because then when that type of thing happens, then other people say, well, gee, we've got this idea that we can invest in Hawaii, but then who's going to come out against us? Who's going to oppose us? Are they going to gain clout? And is it basically, you know, are there going to be people that are sort of part of the haves that have already sort of entrenched themselves? Are they going to be doing things to undermine our success? And are we going to allow that success to be undermined?
Right.
You know, one of the things about the super ferry is, it seems to me that there wasn't the enough structure to stand up and defend the investment, or people who didn't take a look at it from the long-term, you know, consequences of losing that.
Right.
There were new businesses being established on the neighbor islands that were coming back and forth between Maui and Honolulu or Oahu.
Yeah.
And they were building new businesses and new opportunities. And when the super ferry went away, of course, all that got quashed.
Yeah, I think that maybe people coming in trying to do business might think, okay, I'm going to come in, propose this idea, everyone's going to love it. But there's so much work that goes into it, talking with the community, figuring out the groups, making sure everybody's happy. You know, with Turtle Bay, it kind of happened the same way. How were they able to build Turtle Bay? These guys had to work for years talking to the community about the best solution possible until they could get a win-win. But are other companies going to stay around that long to work out all those problems?
Yeah, and then of course, you know, that's, and of course, you know, when you're investing millions and millions of dollars, you're accountable to your investors.
Right.
You know, so there is, and there's an understanding there. Now, we're doing a lot of development in Kaka'ako. We're spending millions in Kaka'ako. In fact, we're building enough housing units. I think it's 4,500 housing units that are being built in Kaka'ako. So, and I mention that because are those smart investments? And as you can see on the map here, these are all the new projects that have been approved that are under development or will be developed in the next few years. Now, the question, of course, is what's the impact of building all that in one spot, one sort of, and not spreading it out throughout the islands? What's going to be the impact on hospitals, schools, traffic, sewage? All of these are going to have a major impact on the area. It also means that there's going to have to be probably some cultural changes going on.
Right.
Are people going to be able to drive? Are you going to be able to put cars, for that many more cars into that area?
Right.
I mean, it's going to have a huge impact on traffic.
Well, and I think something important as legislators that is our job
Mm-hmm.
is to inform the public, right?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be nice for people to know what's going on so that all these problems may be worked out with people with that expertise in the background because they heard it was coming down the pipes?
Mm-hmm.
I think where I am at in Y&I, that's their main concern. Fine, people are going to develop, fine, we may or may not have a huge say over it, but is it too much to ask that we know a little bit about it or that we have a community meeting? So for Kaka'ako, with everything going on there and the buildings, I think like how you said earlier, if more of the experts were brought in, could those kinks be worked out? Maybe.
And maybe bringing in people who don't have an axe to grind. You know, one of the, as we're seeing here, you know, there's so much development going on in Kaka'ako.
Right.
And the question is, are we bringing in just the people who are going to benefit or not benefit? Are we bringing in people who can objectively look at this strategically and say, yeah, you're developing a solution, but here's going to be some of the unintended consequences. And here's the good and the bad and the ugly.
Right.
And having sort of people who have that objective perspective probably is going to be more helpful than having people who are just advocating for one side or the other.
Right, and having people in there that are ready to do conflict resolution
Yes.
heavily
Yes.
and not give up. And so that's kind of where the question is. Okay, if you're going to develop this project and get everyone's input, are you ready to play the mediator? And a lot of people don't want to.
It's a tough job.
It is.
Yes,
It
it's
is.
a tough job. And so we've got some other challenges in Hawaii. You know, we've got a lot of economic issues. You know, this show is supposed to be about our economy. So some of the challenges that we have are some of the unfunded liabilities ahead of us that we haven't funded for. You know, our employee retirement system, over the next 30 years, it's been projected that we're going to need to come up with $27 billion. Now, over the next 6 years, we've got a $3 billion shortfall. So that also means that we're going to have to come up with money, additional money, that's $500 million a year, to fund all of this retirement. So the question is can we maintain these types of retirement systems? Are we going to have to increase the age? Are we going to need to go back and renegotiate these contracts, these state employee contracts? Because you know, one of the things that's been happening in Europe is that they've had all this unfunded liability and it's bankrupted their countries. We're seeing problems in Greece, we saw problems in Turkey, Italy,
Yeah.
lots of places like that. And so the question is, you know, if we're not managing and we're not looking at these liabilities and we're not either negotiating the contracts properly or we're setting expectations too high on the return on these investments,
Right.
you know, are we looking at that? Do we have the experts in place that are doing a good job? You know, Sam Slom has been talking about this issue vehemently, talking about this underfunded problem that we have. And so what can we be doing? Can we be doing more oversight, doing a better job with the oversight?
I think two things. One is, can we do more with less?
Can we do more with less?
I mean, is it possible? And two, is it possible to give people what we can handle instead of what they want? Because obviously everyone's going to want a huge retirement. Everyone's going to want this pension, you know, and I think trying to be realistic, you know, because I think it's a game of making people happy, right? Okay, so is this union going to be happy with this? Or are these guys going to be happy with that? But in the same light, it has to be a realistic game of, you know, we don't have that. And that's probably not a reality. Instead of, okay, we'll give you whatever you want and we'll come up with it later. Okay, you know, and I'm not saying that's what they did, but in essence, that's what you do every day to balance your finances, right?
That's right.
What do I need versus what I want?
Right. And the question is can we afford to have, you know, we have one of the, per capita, we have more people employed by the state or federal or city county government than any other state in the nation.
Wow.
Per capita. So do we need to have that many people working in government?
Well, and that's the question of the Republicans, right? Limiting
Yes,
the
that's
government.
right.
Can we limit the government?
Can we reduce the size of government and still have the efficiency that
Right.
we need?
And then
Yes.
when people do reduce the government, then they're looked on badly, right? Oh, you're cutting jobs.
Yes.
So-
but you may be also creating new opportunities.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
it. That's it. Well, I thank you very much, Andrea, for coming on the show today.
You're welcome.
It's been a great show. And I'm Chris Lethem. This is The Economy and You. Thank you for watching our show. We'll be doing more and talking about other aspects of our economy and what we can be doing to create new opportunities for all of us here in Hawaii. Thank you for tuning in, and aloha.